Let me bring in Doug Herbert at this point, talking about Marine Le Pen and the logistics of what it would be like for her to rule the country, when at the moment, if indeed she was to win the presidency, she would have to get together effectively a cabinet without anybody in Parliament, because they only have 2 seats in the...
The logistics of cobbling together a majority obviously are daunting, to say the least, and that you could say is almost an objective statement. From the outside world looking in at Marine Le Pen, this whole election, if you had to boil it down to one thing, it has all been about the Marine Le Pen factor, if you want to call it. It has all been about whether or not there is going to be this sort of connect the dots syndrome. You go from Brexit, you go to Donald Trump, to Marine Le Pen. You've even had, as you probably knew, a very prominent news comedian in the United States literally making a plea, going to the extent of speaking French, John Oliver, making a plea to the French to do the right thing and to resist the so-called populist wave that we saw sweep over Britain, sweep over the U.S. And the question people have been asking themselves in the lead up to this election is, does France have somehow the superstructure, the infrastructure, the electoral infrastructure in place to resist that populist wave? Now, the jury's still out, obviously. This is a 2-stage election. We're going into a runoff on May 7th. It's obviously too early to say who the next president is going to be. Early polls, initial polls, if you're to believe the polls, suggest that it will be perhaps as much as a 20-point victory for Emmanuel Macron. But that has to come with a lot of disclaimers. But what people are basically looking at this election and saying is that so far, France seems to have some of the elements in place that allow it to resist the same populist wave. You have the 2-stage voting system. You also have the fact that it's a popular vote, unlike the U.S. where you had the electoral vote. The electoral vote actually worked in favor of Donald Trump in the end and helped him win. The fact that you have to get that 50% plus 1 majority here could work in France's favor.